if you can get $1 trillion of economic growth and you cut the budget deficit by $1 trillion, between now and next year, there is no inflation.
Cutting the federal budget in half. That's the goal of the Trump administration, outlined from the Oval Office Tuesday by Elon Musk. But the administration's ambitions could mean nonprofits eventually take a hit. On Tuesday, a federal appeals court stopped an attempt by the president to push forward a broad federal funding freeze that's loomed over nonprofits since January 28th. Nonprofits across Lane County fear vital community services are in jeopardy either now or later, whether or not the courts intervene.
Some of the things that we found, which are shocking, billions and billions of dollars in waste, fraud, and abuse.
With President Donald Trump on a mission to put a pin in government spending, leadership at food banks, churches, and other nonprofits across Lane County are on edge, waiting for a federal funding freeze to go into effect. Through federal funds, one of those nonprofits, HIV Alliance, offers hundreds of clients preventative care, and those patients often either don't have health insurance or are on Medicaid and would otherwise go without care.
PrEP is a medication that prevents HIV infection. It's either a pill you can take every day or an injection you can take every 2 months. And so we have a contract with the CDC to provide that to the community. And so we want to make sure that we continue to able to prevent HIV infections in our community. While those folks will be immediately impacted should these services go away, HIV rates affect everyone in our community.
As of now, HIV Alliance hasn't been impacted by the freeze, though others like Head Start of Lane County were unable to access federal funds. Nonprofit Association of Oregon, which supports some 1,400 nonprofits statewide and more than 2,000 in Lane County, says most organizations can dip into reserve funds, but even those will run out if cuts do come.
We continue to see and hear that nonprofits are unable to access the funding that they're supposed to be able to access through their federal portals. So there's a lot of fear and concern for organizations that rely on federal funding of how are they going to continue to operate if those funds do not get released. If they are unable to continually receive their federal funding, which pays their payroll, at some point, their reserves will run out, and at some point, they will have to close their doors.
For nonprofits who don't receive federal funding, NAO says the competition for private funding will ramp up if cuts come around with a new federal budget. And with diversity, equity, and inclusion cut from federal departments, the organization says nonprofits serving marginalized groups also fear what could happen to funds if they decline to scrub DEI from their websites. Trump right-hand billionaire Elon Musk says cutting federal spending by at least $1 trillion is imperative.
We're essentially going to bankrupt the country. So what I really want to say is, like, it's not optional for us to reduce the federal expenses. It's essential. It's essential for America to remain solvent as a country, and it's essential for America to have the resources necessary to provide things to its citizens and not simply be servicing vast amounts of debt.
The federal spending freeze on loans and grants announced on January 28th was blocked by a federal judge the same day, and a day later, the White House announced it rescinded the freeze memo, but not the freeze. Monaghan says Lane County is the second largest per capita for number of nonprofits after the Portland metro area. Meanwhile, President Trump says the administration will take a look at judges, calling the judicial opposition, quote, a serious violation. He didn't elaborate on what exactly judges were allegedly violating.